Thank you for the presentation.
ほとんどのアプリとか、全然知らなかったのですごい勉強になりました。
She didn't know most of the applications you talked about, but it was educational, she says.
私も海外好きで結構、今年の夏休みも行こうと思ってるんですけれども。
She loves going overseas and she's planning to go this summer to
Chicago?
Chicago.
まず海外行こうと思って考えることがやっぱり、観光どこ行こうかとか楽しいことばっかりで。
The first thing that comes up to me when I think of traveling, is where is fun.
防災についてっていうのは私はあんまり調べない。
Personally, I don't look for any information for the disaster prevention type.
なのでもし私が海外に行って災害が起こった時には、ジオフェンシングとか QR コードとか、インターネットがなくても、使えるような、情報が得られたらいいなと思います。
But if something happens while I'm overseas, the geosensing you were talking about, QR code, things that you can use offline would be very useful. It wasn't a question. It was not a question. You guys can ask too, if you like. どうぞ。
So I have a question for anyone on the ones who are listening to our presentation today. What did you find the most surprising about our data from our survey? What did you find most surprising?
今日ご覧いただいたプレゼンの中でですね、印象的だったことってどの部分でしょうか。どうぞ。
大阪国際課の三田と申します。
Mr. Mitarai from International Division.
プレゼンありがとうございました。
Thank you for the presentation.
大阪府でも国際課の方で外国人旅行者向けの災害のアプリとウェブサイトを今開発中です。
Osaka Prefecture is also developing applications for the disaster prevention.
今回の発表すごい参考になりました。
It was really educational today. Thank you.
特に参考になりましたのがアプリとサイトで例えば使いやすさとか入手しやすさっていうのはチャートでウェイトで点数をつけていただいた表があると思うんですけれども。
He's talking about the Pew chart. He thought that was very impressive. You can, grade which type is, more useful.
で、我々が作るサイトアプリで、特にこの結果といいますか、をすごい参考にしたいなと思ってます。
We are going to use your data for our development. Okay.
で特にアプリのサイトそれぞれウェイトがあるんですけれども、例えばアプリでしたら、ここに書かれている、いろんな項目があると思うんですけれども、皆さんの中で一番これが重要っていうのって何か。
What element do you consider most valuable on the different applications?
What's the question? It's what you find most valuable. Like on this scale?
Which one's bad?
So we had three different criterion that we considered the most important, and those three were the language availability, the information density, and the comprehensibility of the application or website.
その中でいくつもあるんですけどね、我々が重視しているのは、 言語の種類ですね、まずね、日本語だけでは話にならないという話ですね。それから、did you say information density?
Yes.
Yeah. あと情報の質ですね。comprehensibility?
Yep.
あとは分かりやすさ、使いやすさですね。
Having all of the information easily readable and laid out is definitely the biggest thing. There was a lot of information. It just was very spread out and hard to find.
アプリの中ではですね、情報型なんですね。欲しいものがどこ見たか分かんない、どこ見ればいいか分かんない、バラバラになってしまう、散りばめているという、その点がちょっと改良が必要。はい、
特に必要との情報で、今回避難所の情報っていうのがクローズアップされて皆さん調査いただいたんですけれども、それ以外でこれは必要だと思う情報って何でしょうか。
それはアプリを使うの
アプリをの中の情報を渡す場合、今回の調査は避難所の情報をクローズアップしてやっていただいたんです。それ以外の避難所以外の情報で特にこの情報がやはり旅行者にとって必要だと思うような情報って何でしょうか。
He's asking, we concentrated on the evacuation places, right? He's asking what other information will be useful for the tourists from overseas. Can you think of?
They need to know that they need to go to these evacuation sites.
I would recommend including embassy contact information and a request for tourists to contact their embassy as well, because for a lot of people after disasters, that's not something they would think about doing. In addition, you had something?
大使館。
Anyone else?
あと大使館情報ですね。
I think having offline functionality is very important, especially as tourists. We can't
オ
always
フラインに
guarantee
使えるっていうのはとっても大事ですね。はい。
especially as tourists, we can't guarantee having Wi-Fi everywhere, especially during a disaster when things are no longer going as planned.
旅行者ってポケット Wi-Fi 必ず持ってるわけじゃないんですよね。ですから施設で、Wi-Fi が使えないっていうのはちょっと問題ですね。
Like, for example, some of us here do not have SIM cards or pocket Wi-Fi. In addition, we did look at a couple studies that indicated that after the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, that internet access via cell phone was sporadic and very, very slow, like to the point where you probably could not even load a map.
Does it improve if you have a pocket Wi-Fi?
No.
Same thing, right?
Yeah, same thing. It was cellular internet access, which would include pocket Wi-Fi.
やっぱりそういった災害時ですね、どうしてもインターネットの速度が落ちたり、もう使えないとかっていう事情になるので、ここが改善される方法があったら最高ですね。
Let me probe a little bit more on that question. For example, relative to the Safety Tips app or things that are comparable in the preparedness phase, was there anything other than prompting to register with embassies that you saw missing that you think should be added?
大使館の件が出ましたが、それ以外に必要と思われる情報は他にありませんかということですね。
I just want to confirm that when you explained about the evacuation app about the California government, and I wonder some houses firing, and that means the evacuation center the government pointed out is now on fire, so you don't have to evacuate on that side, and another area is safe enough. So what I want to confirm is that information issued, which evacuation center is safe enough, and which another one is the different, dangerous. And 日本語で言いますとね、カリフォルニアのさっきの山火事のね、避難所の地図でよく見ると火事に包まれてる小屋の絵とそうでないところがあったんです。だから単純に、避難所を案内するだけじゃなくて、どこが避難に値する、どこが危ないよっていうのを合わせて発信するというのはアメリカでは実際にもやってるんですが、And adding that, I have another question. The other day, 1 week ago, when you're traveling around in here, you're actually involved in the earthquake and tsunami in this country. And I'm very happy to hear that you're staying in Osaka. As long as you're staying here, you're safe enough. But suppose you're traveling in such area attacked by tsunami, like the Niigata, is that information or the tips you have is useful for you, or is there some point which must be correct? この間津波があった時にですね、お持ちのアプリがですね反応したというのをレベッカさんから聞いてるんですが、もし現地にいた時になんか使い物にどの程度なっててどういう改善点がいるのかなというのを教えてくださいと申し上げました。
Did it work?
The app?
Yeah, the app.
So, when we had the earthquake,
Yeah.
So a couple of things happen with that, and because a lot of us have we have a very wide array of apps between us, who has what, and only some of the apps alerted us.
What information did it give?
That what happened, that there's the magnitude, location,
okay.
And then this is the areas that should be aware.
Is that the application that you are suggesting or already existing?
I don't remember.
It already exists.
Existing.
There was an additional issue
Uh-huh.
with one of the apps is, for example, we had 2 users using the same app. One got a notification, one did not.
But
And
the
part of
information
that-
was different?
So what happens is there's 2 types of permissions. You're like, oh, tell me everything, or you're like, oh, only tell me in this one spot. So when you specify, you lose the information. So if someone travels and doesn't change that, they're no longer receiving. And then that kind of ties into an issue that not all apps are giving notifications, or they give them inconsistently.
この人たち21人いらっしゃってみんな使ってるアプリがバラバラでそうなんですね。でも先日の地震ですか、あの時にはきちんと情報が入ったということですね。ただそれぞれのアプリに問題点はまだありましてね、情報が少なかったり多すぎたり、あるいは許可しないと入れないとかっていうの問題はまだ残ってるということですね。
And my notification was in Japanese, so I couldn't read what happened.
彼女は日本語で表示されたのでなんか意味が分からなかったって言ってますね。
And in terms of more feedback about the applications, so we evaluated a lot of them, and there's no single app that stands alone. The information is spread across the apps, as are the features. And that's one of the greater concerns, because if foreigners are not motivated to download one app, then how are they going to be motivated to download 6 in order to be safe?
Can I ask you,
Yeah.
when you say spread, information is spread out,
Yes.
meaning it's hard to look for the information you want within the application?
Different apps. There's no application that does all about it.
Pardon me?
There's no application that does it all.
OK。全ての機能を持ったアプリはないっていうことですね。Go ahead.
So part of the problem when we were doing these evaluations, what we said before about there being a lot of information, something that would be helpful is kind of taking all that and simplifying it to the most important things, and even a little explanation on that, but having all the different types easily available in an application would be very helpful, whether it's information about safety and procedures or what you should do to be prepared. There is no one thing that application or website that had all of that. It was all split up into those individual pieces, so being able to pull it all together and having the basic information needed, and even with the further explanations would be.
Okay. Did your application give you advices, where to evacuate?
Yes, some. It was a lot of the information was sporadic, or it was split. There was, you had to look in different spots to kind of piece it together to get the full picture.
Within one application?
Within multiple applications.
自分の欲しい情報を得るためにですね、複数のアプリを選ばないとやられない。やっぱり旅行者としては的確に具体性のある、アドバイスが欲しい。そこにストレートに行けたらなっていうことだと思いますね。私から質問させていただきます。日本で開発されているアプリは完成予定っていうのはいつ頃なんですか？ I'm asking when they are complete with their application.
My name is Tokaji from Osaka Foundation of International Exchange, shortly OFIX. As Mr. Mitarai said, now we OFIX and federal government developing a new website and application for foreigners. And now it's very early stage, and a new website and application will be made maybe end of this year. And maybe several years, several months later, we can get trial version. At the time, can we ask you to check and provide us a comment?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。That's good news. When are you going to complete your application?
1 year. We just have ideas to integrate into their app that they're developing.
No plan.
No.
According to the Rebecca said, 1 year later, you will develop the app. No?
Oh, not our.
Not
yes,
our
the next summer
彼らも
team.
今ね、開発してるんですけれどもね、いつ完成出たらいい。
先生の目標はね、1年。
When we had our earlier meeting, you gave us some feedback about what survey questions you would like to be answered, and that was most helpful to set direction. At this phase, as we go into the final analysis that the team will do, do you have any suggestions or requests for areas that are missed or further information that you would like to have?
前回お話しさせていただいた時の情報も非常に貴重なものだったんで、参考になったんですけど、今回もこれで、最終に入りますので、こちらからですね、もう少しこういうものもあった方がいいんじゃないかご提案があればいただきたいんですけど。
素晴らしいプレゼンありがとうございました。印象に残りましたページには 津波のサインですね、こちらの。
He was interested in the signs.
このサジェステッドサインですね、見直した後のやつは大変よくできてるなと思ってます。
He says, well done.
説明あった通り、具体的にビルに上がる絵が描いてあったりとか、4階以上あれば上がりなさいっていうのが、どなたが見ても言語に関係なく分かるようになったのが良かったです。
He's talking about this one. He thinks that it's very specific. What height you have to go up. That happens.
同じページにこの津波が牙を向いているこの絵の方ですね。これは2時間後に来るというサインだと思うんですけれども、何時間後に来るっていう情報は地震によって変わるので、これについてはなんかこう看板ではなくて、その都度情報が入手できる、アプリの方の役割かなというふうに思います。私の意見は以上です。
ありがとうございます。He's talking about the second one with the shark.
Wave.
Okay. No, he thinks it's very good. Okay, except the 2-hour thing. This depends on the area, right? So this should be probably modified according to the area and change the number. Yeah. Okay.
It was only designed for Osaka.
Okay. Well, yeah, but still. 大阪だけでも2時間と限らないですよね。
地震によってその到達時間は変わるので、必ず2時間で来るわけでもないし、
そっか。
早い時もある。
Okay, even in Osaka, within Osaka, each earthquake or tsunami is different. So it might reach quicker or maybe later. Yeah. ありがとうございました。
コメントと少しだけ提案のって感じで、まずプレゼンテーションありがとうございます。
Thank you for the presentation.
サーベイですね、とても面白く見させてもらいま
It
す。
was a very interesting survey.
はい、で私日本人なのにセーフティーエリアのとこが私もホールだと思ってたんで、それですね。
Yeah, she too thought that was a hole.
あとアプリケーションも全然知らなかったので、その日本人での知らないこと、こういう災害に対する備えがやっぱりちょっと薄いっていうところもあるのに、さらに観光客とかに向けてはもっとその教育が必要だなって改めて思います。
Even civilians in Japan are now quite aware of the prevention, right? So when we talk about the foreigners, right, they really need to be educated.
でそこでYouTube とか TripAdvisor で見てくる人が多いっていうのも結構驚きで。
It was surprising to learn from you that the people before coming to Osaka learn or get information from YouTube and Facebook.
はい、なのでそこら辺の本当に情報とかもっと組み合わせて、ね、発展させていけたら面白いなとか、例えば学校教育でも取り入れたりとか。
We can also use that for education, school education.
あと、最後に1個思ったのが、その緊急の度合いですね。そのどんだけエマージェンシーなのか、その例えば地震だったらなかなか予想できないんで、すぐオフラインでも何でもゲットしなきゃいけない。でも例えば台風だったら、ね、あらかじめちょっと来そうだなとか分かるじゃないですか。
すいません、その危険度が。
そうですね、緊急の度合いによってその情報の提供の方法も考えていけられるといいかなっていう。
Degree of emergency. If it's a typhoon, you have time, right? But for tsunami, earthquake, you don't have any time. So probably taking that into consideration when you develop an application, see, in different cases.
なので台風だったらもうちょっとオンラインのもっとインプルーブメントさせるとか。
For typhoon, improve the online applications.
とか、そうですね。地震だったらさっきのこういう津波とかでもこの QR コード。
QR code for the non-line. What was it? Offline, right? Offline.
も面白いかなって思いました。以上です。
ありがとうございました。これって日本側にも当然
日本側の問題が多いです。
そうですよね。I'm saying this is our problem.
ちなみに津波高潮ステーションのトリップアドバイザー上の順位は今日時点で131位ぐらいですね。大阪の見るべきスポット2500ぐらいのうちの、130位ぐらいです、
トリップアドバイザーで見た視聴者の数
トリップアドバイザーでの津波高潮ステーションのランキングがですね、
Ranking for the Tsunami Takashi Station on the
Trip Advisor 大阪で見るべき施設2000ほどの2000をベースにしてですね、130位ぐらいです。上から130位。見るべき施設です。視聴者が評価した、来た人が評価した。
The sites to see, he says, is about 2,000 and 130 とおっしゃった。
134 from top.
From the top.
From the top.
ということは、それだけの人は見てる。
The foreigners, the English-speaking foreigners make the great, awesome, crisis criticize. Evaluations.
それいいですか？
Very good.
So evaluation of this place is very high. He's saying
134. そうです。
It's the evaluation of the people that have visited here. Yeah.
それを見てまた来てくれるっていう感じです。
I have just one more question. What do you think tourists in Osaka should do?
知らせる手段って他にどういうふうなことを考えておられるんですか？ I'm asking them what methods they are thinking of providing foreigners for emergency crisis.
So there's been this good idea about advocacy campaigns. That's actually what we've been thinking about too. But the issue with that thing is that mainly TripAdvisor and services like that, like people who visit them, they have one incentive in mind. They just want to get entertaining information. They don't people like me, they'll probably be like, maybe there's an information like that. Maybe there's a link for people who are afraid for their lives or something like that. But usually that's not the case. Let's be honest. So the thing is that the only way that we can really have this huge, have this way to just let every single person visit in Japan, every single foreigner visit in Japan to get an application. Well, let's imagine that there is one. Is to develop this nice framework between the governments on the embassy levels. Well, the best thing would be to just apologies. The best thing would be to just have this QR code on your visa that says download this, or you may lose your life instead of having fun or something like that. That's like the easiest and at the same time the hardest thing to do because of certain implications that I'm not allowed to talk about. So there's certainly some ideas out there, and as for YouTube, it depends on the content creator.
That's a very important point.
So even if we ask them, they'll probably adjust them to fit the format that they have established. And this is also the problem, because this would create these different interpretations of rules. There's a possibility that this could happen. And in the end, we would end up wasting our resources on something that well, even if we increase the awareness, this would create several myths, or should I say paradigms or misconceptions around the whole phenomenon, and that's not what we want. So yeah, that's pretty much what I can say on the matter right now. So thank you.
So you guys are aware of the problems, right? These problems. We're going to do something, right? We can't just sit. We got to go forward, right?
That's why so many of the data is not recommendable for the. So it must be focused, very important data or information which can save the foreigner's life. If the disaster information you're spreading out for the typhoon is too much, but such information saving from the life from the tsunami, without knowing that it's fatal, but knowing the very small tips is good for saving other people's life. So if you recommend to send the QR code to the consulate or embassy, maybe any government will think this data or app is useful for their own people to save their lives. So the data can be concentrated on the very, very important data.
I would say I think the embassy idea is very powerful. When we were conducting the survey, something we did note, we had a couple of cases where we would ask people where they're from, and like from U.S., we were not required to do anything related to our embassy. However, in the United Kingdom, as part of like checking if there was a visa needed for Japan, etc., they were given disaster information. People were more aware. So from certain, we did notice that certain countries, as part of the interaction with the embassy, were given disaster information, and those were the tourists that were more prepared.
So you're saying that there's a difference between American and English people?
Yeah, and there could be differences between the different countries, and that's what's important, that some countries are educating, others are not. And then if that message comes from here, that
okay, wait. So you're talking about
more data. I would first say find more data that supports that and see the country's policies, but there is a difference between where people come from and what their government does to educate.
Okay, so my understanding is that each country has a different level of education.
Yes.
Okay, emergency.
As part of their travel. So if someone wants to travel here, they have a different education.
Okay. 国によってこういう非常事態に関する教育がちょっと違うのでっていう話をされてるんですね。で、先ほどの話出てる話なんですけど、結局アプリを使う、アプリじゃないな、サイトを使うっていう、ことにおいてもやっぱり障害はたくさんまだまだありまして、もう言い出したきりがないほどあるっていうようなことをおっしゃってたんですけど、とはいえ何もせずにこのままじっとしてるわけにもいかないので前進していかなきゃいけないですよね。で、その時にやっぱり必要なのは具体的なデータじゃないかっていうことでおっしゃってました。
一応確かめたいんですけども、アプリを日本語わかりますよね。はい。アプリを広めるのに各国の大使館の方で観光客の方がダウンロードできたり、ビザの申請の時にも強制的に入れろというようなふうにしたらどうかという提案でしたよね。で、私それを受けて、それであれば各国のあまりたくさんに広げたね、台風の情報とかそんなに命を失うような情報まで入れるんじゃなくて、これを知らないと命を失うかもしれんというようなぐらいの範囲に収めた使いやすいアプリっていうのがいいんじゃないかなということに対してのまた今のお答えで、各国によって理解が違うんでと、じゃあ国連にっていうような話もね、今後やっていっていただいたらありがたいかもしれないですね。
He's talking about the embassy. You see, if embassy can force foreign visitors to download the application before coming to Osaka, and that was the problem. But at the same time, that would cause a lot of problems if it's a force. it's about time to wrap up. Yeah, okay.
Thank you for this productive session. Thank you for the feedback and the comments that you've made about the presentation that will help us to further improve it towards our final report product. On behalf of the students, thank you for this opportunity. This is coming to Japan itself is an amazing opportunity. Having the opportunity to speak with you all, to learn from you all, and interact with the government officials is very rare and very valuable to us. And thank you for your hospitality.
今日は大切なお時間、貴重なお時間いただきありがとうございました。参考させていただきますということ。Can we have some beautiful background?
3、2、1、はい。Once more。はい、チーズ。
Looks good.